Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barney Johnson. I'm a classical composer, and originally here from Anderneux-les-Bains, which is in the southwest of France. The closest big city would be Bordeaux. And as many of you probably know, or maybe don't know, I lived for 5 years in France studying harmony, counterpoint, orchestration, and to ultimately help with composition. And after having a master's and bachelor's in composition from America, and after 5 years I finally woke up and was like, okay, enough is enough. You get trapped in a cycle of education, I need this, and there's always more skills we want, right? But finally I woke up and I thought, enough. I have what I need. I'm already a great composer. I believe in my work. The audience loves my work. Yes, I'm going to continue studying on my own. I'm studying Bach for sure, Debussy, Rameau, all the greats, and maybe the lesser greats. But I don't need any more education at this point. So I got out of Paris. I wasn't a fan of Paris, and my lease was up. So I decided to move to the region where I'm now. I'm really happy with the choice because it's definitely cheaper, the people are nicer, and I feel more comfortable in my surroundings. My goal was twofold, was to finish my orchestra piece, Help Is on the Way, as well as to find a job as a composition teacher. In France, there's a conservatory in every single town, and it's publicly funded, so it's very affordable. Anyone can take music lessons. And I spent a lot of time and money into, just getting more skills, getting my YouTube channel right, getting the equipment, getting a French teacher so I can get better at written French, working on my cover letter resume, put a lot of effort. Unfortunately, that effort has not yielded the results, the immediate results rather, that I was hoping to achieve. I don't know from the background, but you can hear in France, people don't know how their dogs under control. I do not understand it. It's really unacceptable. Anywho, so despite all my effort, I wasn't able to get a job. I have 20 years composition experience. I've heard my works performed. I've rehearsed them. I've even conducted some of them. I have 7 years teaching experience, and unfortunately, things happen. I was not successful, and so now my goal is to go back to America. But that will take some time because I need to save up money and things like that. And I also still need to get a job. So now I'm looking for a job as a translator, okay? My other goal here was to finish my orchestra piece, Help Is on the Way. It's 5 movements for orchestra. It's about 35 to 40 minutes of music, 5 movements. And this piece will be played after my death, that's for sure. There's no way I put this time and love, TLC, into this baby and it's not being played after my death. Better be played before my death for sure, but this baby is a keeper, that's for sure. I want to talk to you today about something that keeps me going. Now, this one thing I'm going to tell you about that keeps me going, it's not the only thing that keeps me going. It's not even the primordial thing, because without it, I still would have kept going, and I would still be doing everything I'm doing. But it just gives me an added buffer of security. So I'm here in a foreign country where I did not feel very accepted. At least in Paris. Here is much better, I will say. And don't have a job in my field, don't have a job, right? It's very bleak on the outset. Living through an Airbnb, that can't last forever. So just very, very bleak. But there's something that gives me hope, or at least kind of entrenches me in my ways. And so if you've watched my other videos, the big fear for me right now, and the thing I have to be very wary of, is spiritual poverty. Poverty is one thing. I don't consider myself poor because I can always get a job in a hotel or something. I have enough experience in other fields outside of music that I can certainly do that, and I probably will have to do that. So it's not an issue of financial poverty. It's more an issue of the soul. And I was spiritually poor while I was in Paris because I was just so obsessed with the studies, I wasn't really composing. And then as the studies subsided, I didn't replace that with composition. I was composing, but it wasn't front and center. And so when you put composition front and center, which is what I do right now, you don't really reap any immediate benefits, unfortunately. Yes, your soul is calmer, but the outskirt, the upfront is very turbulent because you don't have a job, you have a lot of stress. But that's, of course, the surface. But the surface, if the waves are ferocious, doesn't matter how still the water is underneath, your face is getting slapped, and you know, it's quite difficult. Sorry, I just want to take a look at where we're at in time. Okay, good. Sorry, my glasses are quite dirty, and also I don't like how I look with them, so I'm not wearing them. So yes, it's for vain reasons I took them off, but also they're quite dirty. I tried to clean them, I don't know, it doesn't work. So the big danger is spiritual poverty, but there is something that has kind of reminded me of the value of what I'm doing. I'm getting closer to finishing up my orchestra piece. It's almost there. I just maybe 2 more weeks maybe and it'll be done, I think. But this piece, it spoke to me. It spoke to me. Yeah, it spoke to me. What does that mean, the piece spoke to you? Imagine that like you're reading a book and then the book like becomes independent of you and like walks and like jumps out like in a Disney movie and it starts talking to you. That's essentially what the piece did. Not literally, okay, I wasn't hallucinating on mushrooms or something. So that would be kind of awesome. No, not right now. Well, the piece spoke to me. So it happened like in April or May of this year, so 2022, after I had made composition front and center. And that was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. It meant losing lots of friends. Not friends, but you know, people in my life that were not healthy for me. It wasn't a conscious thing. It just, once you're vibrating on an energy that's your energy, you know, people that were attached to the old Barney, obviously they're going to be turned off because it's a different energy. Makes sense. So I lost, you know, a lot of earthly things. Definitely lost money, but it had to be done. And when I was working on this piece, I was working on the second movement in, I would say, May. Love the second movement. It's I might even give nicknames to each movement, and this would be called the trance one because you enter a trance-like state in it. There's 2 trance sections. The first one is kind of almost like you're on some kind of, you know, psychedelic drug or something, because it's it's just, you know, it's something like primordial, you know. And the second trance section is very heavenly, like you feel like you're in the gates of heaven, or you've entered some bibliothèque, like a library in the heavens, and you see angels with parchment paper and writing things down. So I was working on the second movement. I actually wrote this whole orchestra work back in Jersey, finished in 2016, 2017 before I was in Paris. But after some years in Paris, I realized it had to be revised. You know, the vision was beautiful, but the implementation was lacking. Now I have the skills, thankfully. So I was working on the second movement, like in May or April, and the work, it spoke to me. So let me tell you, composition is hard. It is hard. Sometimes it's, oh yeah, it's fine, it's hard. The fun part is just like, you know, when you're not committed. You're just like writing things down on paper, and it's nothing has to be presented. But once you have to really put it in a form that is clear and it's like that, this is it, then it's not fun anymore. Or you have to find fun in a different way. So I was, I think I just wanted to hear my piece because I noticed I have difficulty hearing. And I think it's just because it's my first orchestra piece. And also it's, you know, it's never been played before. So what does it really sound like? I don't know. I can play on piano, but that's not the orchestra. And for some reason, I took out the piece and the music jumped out. It jumped out. It really jumped out at me. Like it just, I heard the piece performed. It performed itself for me. The piece performed itself for me. Because usually when I try to hear it, I have to build it up piece by piece. I hear the violins, okay, I hear a certain section. I hear approximately what it is, you know. If I really have to, then I build up the chord, but it's really hard to hear completely accurately. Sometimes I'm just listening to the melody, to the harmony, to the surface level details. I'm listening for pacing. So there's always, you're never just listening to the piece. You're always listening for something, or at least for me, that seemed to be the case. But I wanted to hear the piece, and it revealed itself to me. And in its shining, naked glory, it revealed itself to me. The piece was just singing itself to me. And it was incredibly, incredibly fucking beautiful. There's no way around it. It doesn't mean beautiful in the sense that it's peaceful. There's parts that are very turbulent for sure. I wouldn't say it's a peaceful piece. It's not an angry piece. But definitely it's an adventure. So we go on this really wonderful adventure. It starts at the very beginning of the first movement. It starts off like a stormy, like something, like someone's just like you go into a room and two people just got done fighting. You don't know what the fight was about. You didn't hear what they said, but you could feel that tension. And then that tension kind of se disparaît, as the French would say. It kind of disappears, it thins out, and then the piece starts. And there's like a brass chorale, really nice brass chorale. And then there's multiple movements, of course. And then we go for a whole journey. So I was, the second movement, working on the second movement, and the music just popped, and I heard it in its raw, naked glory. That's the only way I can describe it. The best way I can describe like what it did to me was to say that when I heard it, as it was, just like performed. Because when I usually hear it, it's in a very stale way. I wonder if other composers have this too. When I do hear it, it's just, I'm hearing, is it balanced? That's my biggest fear. Is it too loud, too soft? Is it too weak? Is it not well supported? Are there contradictions? Is the audience not going to understand my intentions in terms of orchestration? So I'm always concerned about that. But here, I just heard the piece as it is. And when I heard it, in its raw, naked glory, which was the way to explain it besides that, but I understood the suffering I went to put this, everything I had to go through in Paris, 5 years of living away from my homeland. Now I'm in my 6th year, really feeling rejected in Parisian society, not knowing my way around, having to ask for directions, for, help with various judicial things in French, and having people scoff at me or giving me a really hard time, and all that suffering, which I did for composition ultimately, to get better, to have the skill set I need to do this piece. And all the trials and tribulations, no complaining. And when I heard the piece perform itself for me, it was totally worth it, because it was that glorious. All the suffering was suddenly worth it when I heard how glorious this piece is. I'm gonna check on the time. Oh, it's really not the time I'm checking on, it's more the battery. I need to get a new cable. I hate, it's so annoying. You buy all these products, and then the cables are so weak that then you have to buy a new cable. I don't know if things work just the first time around. It is what it is. So I heard the piece speak to me. It spoke to me. It revealed itself to me. It's out of this world. This is music out of this world. And I think the other thing that intrigues me is when I saw the piece in its naked glory, or when it played itself in its naked glory. What I'm about to say, I did not experience at the time. It's just my description of the experience afterwards, okay? And perhaps I sound like a crazy person, but whatever. I'm a composer. It's all right. I think composers are allowed to be crazy. Is someone else crazy on the street? No. But if it's a composer, we have to be like, well, it's a composer. Okay, what do you expect? What do you fucking expect? So the piece, it sang to me, and in that moment, I think what was so disturbing but beautiful, enlightening, one could say, is in that moment, there was no Barney. There was no Barney. I thought there was an audience, but there wasn't an audience. It was just listening. There was listening without an audience. Yes, technically I saw the image of the audience there where it's going to be performed. I know exactly where this piece will be premiered. I'm not going to tell you, but I have it registered in my head. But yeah, at first I saw the audience, but like, no, it was just listening, like a unified mass just listening in peace. Again, it doesn't mean the piece itself, peace. It doesn't mean that the work itself is peaceful. It has ups and downs, it's an adventure. It can all be peaceful. But there was just like eternal peace that was listening to the piece. And what I see afterwards too is there was no Barney. Hold on, I'm just checking on the time. Okay, good. There was no Barney, you know, and what I saw later, oh my God. Sorry, I just got a little bit wet. I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's like water that's leaking in. But going back, what I saw is that there was no Barney, and Barney me, yes, I'm Barney, I was used, but in the noblest of senses, I was used. The piece is some independent force that used me, that got me, somehow roped me into doing the work, all the fucking work. Lord have mercy. Let me tell you, though I am not in financial prosperity at the moment, I will be paid back for my time for this piece, financially, for sure. Now, you can never repay me for the piece, of course, right? Could you ever repay Beethoven for the Ninth Symphony? No, there's no amount of money you can pay him for that. And I'm not saying my work is on the Ninth Symphony level. I'm just trying to show you that you can never really repay composers for the contribution they render to our society. But because of that, I know that this is worth it. Now, I would have still kept going anyway, but it reminds me, and I want to hear that again. I want the piece to speak to me again. But again, I was used. The piece was using me. The piece is something beautiful. It's this other creature that needs an outlet, right? It's just something, it exists in the heavens or somewhere, and it needs someone to take the time and write it down and show it. You know, it needs me, or it needs someone, and somehow it shows me. And that's the beauty when you compose, and when you ally yourself to the music of the heavens. I mean, it's a very difficult task, of course. But the piece is quite, there's something exceptional. And the other exceptional thing about the piece is I think there's something very innocent in it. It's my first orchestra piece. Definitely I'll never write a piece like this again. Definitely I will never write a piece for free again. I certainly will be demanding a large sum for the world premiere, that's without doubt, but I need to be paid in advance to write a work like this. It's just taking up too much of my life. But that's my problem, or not. I don't know why the piece showed itself to me. I don't know why it did that to me. Because now it's like I got a dose of, you know, ecstasy or something, and I want more. I'm like, I want to hear that piece. It was just so alive. Because usually when I hear my pieces, they're not alive. You know, it's just I'm hearing it in a very angular sense, and a technical level. That is my job, you know, of course, as a transcriber. That's what a composer is. They transcribe music of the heavens. So even though on the outset, you know, things look bleak, this piece is very special. It's very special. It will be played after my death. That's for sure. Barney Johnson, classical composer. Hope you have a wonderful day.